Meanwhile, President Biden has had quite a year when it comes to foreign policy, from his botched Afghanistan withdrawal to tensions with China, and now Russia on the verge of invading Ukraine. But when asked to name some of the president's foreign policy accomplishments, Jen Psaki, she had the longest list of. No, she didn't. She didn't have anything to say. Watch.
What does the administration consider your biggest achievement in foreign policy in this first year?
You know, this is a great question. I want to be thoughtful about it. I want to talk to the president about it, and I'm happy to do that.
You don't have an answer for that? That is a gimme. That's a layup. That should be written on your fingertips. Oh, but guess what? There haven't been any overseas wins for this administration. And we're going to talk about just that with tonight's party panel. We've got Independent Women's Forum Senior Policy Advisor and the Federalist contributor. And Nez Stepman is back. Hey, Nez. We got former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, who doesn't like that Joe Manchin one bit, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, Christopher Hahn, and a royal blue tie, and director of the Libertarian Institute. You see those hallowed halls behind him. It is Scott Horton. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. So, Scott, you spent a lot of time in this lane, so I will start with you. Obviously, if your own press secretary cannot extol your foreign policy virtues, you've got a problem here. So what is most problematic for the Biden administration right now? Is it Russia knocking on Ukraine's door? Is it what happened with the Afghanistan dismount, or is it something in between?
Well, I give him credit for ending the Afghan war as Donald Trump signed a deal and promised to do. It's a 20-year-long catastrophe that could never have been won. I wrote a book called Fool's Errand 4 years ago about how it could not ever be won and should be ended immediately. And so even though it was a botched withdrawal, at least it's over. America's longest war ended in defeat. And then tied for his other foreign policy achievement, I may be the only one on the panel who sees it this way tonight, but I give him a win for backing down last week on Ukraine and promising Putin publicly that he would not bring Ukraine into NATO, and saying in a press conference that if Russia did invade Ukraine, that he would not send troops because they are not a member of NATO. But he only gets half credit for that because, in fact, the whole Ukraine crisis is partially his fault. If you guys saw the great Tucker Carlson bit on Ukraine last week, he played the clip from Victoria Nuland's intercepted and leaked phone call with Jeffrey Pyatt plotting the coup. And one of the things she says is that I just got word from Jake Sullivan that Vice President Biden is on board to get on the conference call, give the coup plotters an attaboy, and help make the deets stick, she said. That's the famous F the EU phone call. She's saying F the EU because they're not moving fast enough on this coup. So we'll go ahead and do it without them, and Vice President Biden is helping us to do it. And it was that coup in 2014 that led to the loss of the Crimean Peninsula and led to the war in the east of Ukraine that's killed more than 10,000 people. So the fact that he's now diffusing a crisis that he helped to create, he gets credit for that, but only half.
Chris?
Look, I give him credit for ending the war in Afghanistan. Frankly, every president, including President Bush, who started the war, has said they were going to try to do it, and he did it. Now, granted, it was messy. It was horrible. We lost lives. A lot of Afghanis are suffering as a result of it, but it did have to end. So I do give him credit for that. And I think the Biden administration has a hard time taking that credit because of the way the withdrawal looked and the images that it produced. So, look, I think they should own the victory. And
Sometimes
they should also own the mistakes that were made in the withdrawal.
But here's the problem with the administration is they're so, and I include Vice President Harris in this, they're so hung up on optics and how things look that they discount the reality. And the reality is, as we've covered on the show a lot, there's still Americans stuck over there. They have no way of getting out. And I think there are a lot of voters who won't forget about that in the next two major elections. Your thoughts, Inez?
I don't think voters are going to forget about that, even though voters don't vote generally on foreign policy, and the ending the Afghanistan war was a popular move. I think that Americans are smart enough to know the difference between incompetence and purpose. And I think that that's been what's characterized a lot of this administration's foreign policy has been haphazard. It's been incompetent. and it doesn't give any confidence. I think it's kind of laughable that every time we hear about restoring, sort of America's respect in the world, this doesn't restore America's respect in the world. And that's regardless what your foreign policy goals are, you have to pursue them in a competent and firm way. And I don't think that that is what this administration has projected at home. And I don't think it's what is projected abroad. And I think, frankly, there is a middle ground between isolationism and sort of remaking the world. There is a American foreign policy tradition called Jacksonianism. And then I think that's part of the reason that under President Trump's watch, we had fewer international crises than we've had in just 1 year.
Well, we'll see what 2022 brings us. Looks like things are just heating up. Great. War rages on between the white man and the Native American. Elon Musk now firing back at Cherokee Princess Elizabeth Warren over her calls to seize his wampum. It started Monday when the Massachusetts Democrat tweeted, quote, "Let's change the rigged tax code so the person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else." Yesterday, Musk replied, "Please don't call the manager on me, Senator Karen," adding, "If you opened your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize I will pay more taxes than any American in history this year." So is taking more of Elon Musk's money and putting it in the hands of government bureaucrats the answer to America's problems? The party panel is back. Inez Stepman, Chris Hahn, Scott Horton, Holy Underwear. Inez, I will start with you. One of the many lies ultra-leftists like Elizabeth Warren likes to propagate is that there's a 1% and they don't pay their fair share. Billionaires don't pay taxes. Man.
Well, the top 1% pay about 40% of our income taxes. So the negotiation on what's fair, I mean, I'd like to start with the numbers. And it's true that often some ultra billionaires like Elon Musk end up paying lower tax bills because they don't have income, right? They are invested in stocks, but that's exactly what Musk is pointing to. He's liquidating Tesla stock. So he's going to pay enormous taxes this year. But aside from this, I'm really much more worried about sort of a managerial upper 20% that is intertwined in agencies, in academia, in HR departments, in Fortune 500 companies. Those, in my sort of observation over the years, have been, that class has been able to really push forward its priorities in politics and especially in executive agencies, much more than a sort of scary, shadowy 1% of Jeff Bezos's and Elon Musk's. Because largely they work in a lot of those institutions, both in and out of government. And if you doubt me on that, you need to look no further than the huge push to forgive student loans, which at roughly a 7-to-1 margin will be going, those dollars from the government will be flowing from the majority of Americans without a college degree and to the top 20%, the top quintile, as opposed to the bottom quintile if loan forgiveness was implemented. So that's really, those folks are much more powerful in policy and politics than we realize when we're focusing on Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or the 1%.
Yes, it is the silent cronyism that's really going to bite us in the backside. Chris, do you want to give me some phony statistics about who doesn't pay taxes?
You know what? I don't really care about a battle between Jeff Bezos and Senator Warren. Look, love his car. Yeah, I don't think he's paying the same percentage of his income as you and I are when we're on salaries, and that's the problem. That's what she's getting at. Let's be real here. I know he's going to pay a lot more than I am, and yeah, he probably is going to pay more taxes than any American in the history of this country. But he's also made more than any American, and he's on track to become the first trillionaire in the history of this country.
I'm great with
so, yeah, pay your percent.
Yeah, I've no problem with people creating wealth because of their fantastic ideas that benefit the rest of humanity. No problem with that at all whatsoever.
Neither
Scott,
do I. I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, you do.
None.
I can hear it in your voice. And like, he's going to be a trillionaire.
No problem at all,
and
Kennedy.
no one should have more
That's not
than
what
me.
I said.
He needs to pay his fair share, which is a completely arbitrary phrase. My issue, Scott Horton, is that Elon Musk takes a lot of money from the government. So he has no problem signing up for buckets of cash to fund some of his public-private partnerships, which, if they were private, would be just as good. Your thoughts?
Yep, that's absolutely right. His sin is not getting away with avoiding taxation. I congratulate all billionaires and anybody else in this country who can get away with not paying taxes. We should repeal, especially income tax. We should repeal the 16th Amendment immediately. I mean, just
Amen.
think about the idea that you'd have a capitalist economy where it's a crime to earn. And the better you do, the more trouble you're in, the higher your fine. The whole thing is completely crazy. It's a completely corrupt system, but it's also corrupt in the subsidies. And you know, the government takes all that money and then they pass it out to their cronies, including Elon Musk. And he's not the worst offender. It's the arms dealers and the Wall Street bankers are the very worst. But the more wealthy and powerful you get, and the more wealthy and powerful your corporation gets, the more welfare you get in this society.
Exactly
it's part
right.
of what's pushing so many people to socialism is because the capitalism in this country is so corrupt. And so that's the thing, is end all subsidies and all favoritism. In real free market capitalism, the customer is king. But in crony capitalism, the supply buys off congressmen to rig the system to protect them at the expense of their customers.
Then that's it. That's the rigging. And that's what Inez was talking about. But you were absolutely right about that. So last night I was talking about stop asking taxpayers to foot your bill for college. We are not on the hook for that. That is not your right. But you're also absolutely right. And the Ex-Im Bank. Like, stop the corporate welfare as well. Nothing is too big to fail. I said that in 2008. I'll say it again today twice. All right, meanwhile, squad member Ilhan Omar pushing a controversial bill that aims to confront Islamophobia, but even the Biden administration may have some problems with it. Omar's bill would direct the State Department to create a special envoy and an office to combat Islamophobia. But officials say that's flat out redundant and a little too narrow. The House already passed it. So the bill heads to the Senate. Are we going to soon see a special envoy for Islamophobia? And my question, Inez, why not a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism?
Why not a special envoy to make sure that people who are left-handed in this country are fully represented in all of its
they're
myriad
tools of the devil,
glories?
frankly.
No. The problem with this bill is that it didn't define Islamophobia, and aside from that, you know, I'm not sure I trust a party, and but frankly, it's not just the party. Again, it's the agency, it's the bureaucrats who are, you know, defining people with whom they disagree as domestic terrorists left and right to create a new office under a very vaguely worded statute that doesn't define the actual sort of views or crimes, and that itself is a blurry distinction in this bill that it's trying to combat. So that's why this was a party line vote, and it probably will go nowhere in the Senate.
Do you think it's going to pass the Senate, Chris? And if so, are we going to have an envoy to combat misogyny?
I don't think it's going to pass the Senate, but Islamophobia is surely a problem. You don't even need to look that far. During the debate on this bill, Scott Perry, the representative leading the floor debate for the House Republicans, called Ilhan Omar a terrorist on the floor of the House of Representatives. There's a real problem on the right now. They want to outdo each other on racism and Islamophobia, and Scott Perry should be censured.
What about some of the censurable comments from Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib in terms of their rabid anti-Semitism?
Ilhan Omar was disciplined dramatically.
No, she wasn't.
She was rebuked on the House floor by the Speaker of the House.
Was she censured?
There was a censure resolution. And she was required to complete training. She made a formal apology that was actually sincere and thoughtful.
Yeah.
She reached out to Jewish groups in her district.
Yeah.
I see none of that coming from the right. You see none of that coming from the right because the right wants to outdo each other. And Kevin McCarthy, the leader, he'll hide in the corner so he can have a chance to be speaker, which will never happen for him.
Don't use words like never. All it takes for one thing to happen to disprove your statement. You should know that. Don't employ universals on the show. It's hackery is what it is. Okay, go ahead, Scott. Is this what is necessary from the federal government?
No, absolutely not. We should abolish the State Department altogether. We don't need these people, and they have no right to be hectoring the rest of the world about their moral failings when the U.S. government are the greatest purveyors of violence and dishonesty in the world today, as they have been for generations now. Elon Omar and the rest of the 535 up there on Capitol Hill, their sacred oath is to this Constitution to protect this Bill of Rights for the people of this country and leave the rest of the world at H alone.
Well said, Scott Horton. I love when you get fiery and succinct. Yeah, I don't trust her. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people, I will say this. I know a lot of people get super mad at Ilhan Omar for marrying her brother, but in her defense, he's kind of hot. I don't think I'm wrong about that, Inez. Your thoughts?
I have never seen Ilhan Omar's brother, so I really can't speculate.
You know, could be subjective. Chris?
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yes,
Really
you do. You're never at a loss for words.
I don't know that she's married to her brother. I've heard this rumor, but is that true?
Yeah.
I mean,
You know what?
that can't be
If
true.
someone
Can't
accused,
possibly,
if someone
it can't possibly be true, especially where I don't know where you got it from.
possibly. Do you not read?
I got one. U.S.
Go ahead,
U.S. out of Somalia, now our longest war.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. At least someone's reading and making sense. Scott Horton. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I do appreciate a good, loving joust. Inez, Chris, and Scott, have a good rest of your night. Thank you. Double peace out.
You too.
Yes. I'm not done, though, with the show.